The morning started like any other day for Taeho. He stood at his post near Seoul, watching the sunrise paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. He was a soldier in the Republic of Korea Army, and this week was supposed to be quiet. Just routine patrol duty, nothing special. But then his radio crackled to life. The voice on the other end sounded scared. All units report to base immediately. This is not a drill. Taeho ran to his vehicle. Other soldiers were doing the same, their faces confused and worried. Nobody knew what was happening. As he drove back to base, he looked up at the sky. Something felt wrong. At the Korea Astronomy and Space Science Institute, Hee-jin stared at her computer screen. The numbers made no sense. Large objects had appeared in Earth's orbit. Very large objects. At first, she thought her equipment was broken. She checked everything twice, then 3 times. This can't be real, she whispered to herself. But it was real. Massive vessels, bigger than anything humans had ever built, were floating above the planet. They had appeared out of nowhere, as if they had been invisible and suddenly decided to show themselves. Hee-jin picked up her phone with shaking hands. She needed to call her supervisor. She needed to call the government. She needed to call someone. Within an hour, every major space agency on Earth confirmed the same thing. They were not alone. The ships hung over major cities around the world. New York, London, Beijing, Moscow, Tokyo, and Seoul all had massive alien vessels hovering in their skies. People stopped what they were doing and stared upward. Some screamed. Some cried. Some took pictures with their phones as if this was just another interesting event to share online. Then the aliens spoke. Every television, every radio, every phone suddenly showed the same image. A creature appeared on screens worldwide. It was tall and thin, with skin that seemed to shimmer like oil on water. Its eyes were large and dark. When it spoke, the words were translated into every human language. "People of Earth," the alien said. Its voice was calm, almost bored. "I am Commander Velrath of the Kethrin Empire. Your world is now under our control. You have 72 hours to surrender. Do not resist. Resistance will result in your destruction. We have conquered 47 worlds before yours. You cannot win." The message ended. The screens went back to normal. For a moment, the entire planet was silent. Then chaos erupted. People ran through the streets. Some tried to leave the cities. Others locked themselves in their homes. Governments held emergency meetings. Military forces around the world prepared for war. Taeho sat in the briefing room with his unit. His commanding officer looked tired and old. "We don't know much about them," the officer said. "But we know they have advanced weapons. Energy weapons, some kind of armor that generates force fields. They can manipulate gravity. They are more advanced than us in almost every way. But we have to defend our home," another soldier said. "Yes," the commanding officer agreed. "We defend our home." The next 3 days were the longest in human history. The United Nations tried to negotiate. They sent messages to the alien ships. They offered peace, cooperation, anything to avoid war. The Kethrins did not respond. They simply waited, silent and threatening in the sky above. Hee-jin worked around the clock studying the alien vessels. She tried to find any weakness, any information that might help. But the ships were like nothing she had ever seen. They seemed to bend the laws of physics. They generated no heat signature despite their enormous size. They moved without any visible means of propulsion. "They're so confident," her colleague said, looking at the data. "They don't even hide their ships. They just sit there knowing we can't do anything." Taeho and his unit dug defensive positions around Seoul. They set up weapons, placed barriers, and prepared for the worst. Some of the soldiers were very young, barely out of training. Taeho could see the fear in their eyes. He felt that same fear in his own chest, but he couldn't show it. Leaders had to be strong. "Do you think we can win?" a young soldier asked him. Taeho didn't know what to say. He settled for, "We'll do our best." The 72 hours ended. Around the world, people held their breath. The Kethrin ships began to move. Small objects detached from the large vessels and began falling toward Earth. Thousands of them. Drop pods, someone called them. Transport vehicles bringing enemy soldiers to the surface. In orbit, Commander Velrath watched his forces descend. This was always his favorite part of a conquest. The moment when the primitive species below realized they had no hope. The moment when they saw his warriors descending like avenging angels. Soon, Earth would be just another name on the list of conquered worlds. 10,000 Kethran warriors were in those drop pods. Elite soldiers, each one a veteran of multiple campaigns. They wore armor that could stop bullets and energy weapons. They carried rifles that could cut through steel. They had been modified and enhanced to be perfect soldiers. Velrath smiled as he watched the pods enter Earth's atmosphere. In a few minutes, they would land. In a few hours, major cities would be under Kethran control. In a few days, Earth would surrender. It always happened this way. Tejo saw the pods falling from the sky. They came down fast, trailing fire as they cut through the atmosphere. He gripped his rifle tighter. Around him, hundreds of soldiers did the same. Everyone was tense, waiting, ready to fight. The pods hit the ground hard. Dust and dirt flew into the air. There was a moment of silence. Then the pods began to open. Tejo aimed his weapon at the nearest pod. He could see movement inside. A shape emerged from the smoke and dust. The alien soldier was tall, maybe 7 feet. Its armor glowed with blue energy. It held a weapon that looked deadly and advanced. It took one step forward, then another. Then it fell. The alien crashed to the ground like a puppet with its strings cut. Its armor made warning sounds. The soldier tried to get up but couldn't. It fell again. Tejo stared in confusion. Was this a trick? He looked at the other pods. More aliens were emerging. They all took a few steps. They all fell. Some didn't even make it out of their pods before collapsing. The sound of armored bodies hitting the ground echoed across the landing zone. What's happening? Someone shouted. Nobody had an answer. The mighty alien invasion force was defeating itself. The warriors who were supposed to conquer Earth couldn't even stand up. Their weapons fired randomly as they fell, but they couldn't aim. They couldn't fight. They couldn't do anything except collapse under their own weight. In orbit, Commander Velrath received the first reports from the ground. He didn't believe them. He ordered his warriors to stand up and fight. But the reports kept coming. His soldiers were dying. They weren't being killed by humans. They were simply dying from being on Earth's surface. For the first time in his long military career, Velrath felt something he had never experienced before. Fear. Cold, terrible fear. Tuyun was a combat medic. He had trained for years to treat wounded soldiers under fire. He had prepared for bullet wounds, burns, chemical attacks, and every other horror of war. But nothing had prepared him for this. He ran toward the fallen aliens, his medical bag bouncing on his back. His training took over. Wounded soldiers needed help, even if those soldiers were aliens trying to invade Earth. His commanding officer shouted at him to be careful. But Doyun was already moving. The first alien he reached was still alive. Its armor made beeping sounds, and lights flashed red across its surface. Doyun knelt beside it. The alien's large eyes looked at him. It tried to speak, but only strange sounds came out. Then its eyes closed. Doyun checked its vital signs as best he could. The alien's heart was beating too fast. Its breathing was shallow and rapid. He could see through the damaged armor that the alien was bleeding internally. But how could he treat a species he didn't understand? All across the landing zone, the scene repeated. Aliens emerged from their pods and collapsed. Some died immediately. Others struggled for a few minutes before losing consciousness. A few managed to fire their weapons, but they couldn't aim properly. Their shots went wild, hitting nothing but dirt and empty air. Tejo moved forward carefully with his squad. They approached the drop pods with weapons ready, expecting a trap. But there was no trap. The mighty Kethran Empire's invasion force was scattered across the ground, helpless and dying. Should we take prisoners? One soldier asked. I don't think we need to, another replied. They can't even stand up. Within 20 minutes of landing, most of the alien soldiers were either dead or unconscious. The few who remained awake could barely move. Their armor's life support system screamed warnings in alien languages. Some of the aliens crawled back toward their pods, trying to escape, but they didn't have the strength. News traveled fast. Similar scenes were happening around the world. In New York, London, Tokyo, everywhere the Kethrans landed, the same thing occurred. The aliens fell. Humanity's greatest threat had defeated itself in minutes. Kyung-mi was a military intelligence officer. She arrived at the landing zone an hour after the pods touched down. She had expected to see a battle. Instead, she saw hundreds of fallen aliens being examined by confused medics and scientists. She approached Do-Yun, who was still trying to save alien lives. What happened? She asked. Do-Yun shook his head. I don't know. They just collapsed. Look at this. He showed her his medical scanner. Their bones are fractured in multiple places. Their internal organs are damaged. It's like something crushed them from the inside. Kyungmi examined the data. She pulled out her tablet and started running calculations. She measured the alien's height and estimated its weight. She looked at the structure of its bones through the medical scanner. Then she understood. "It's the gravity," she said quietly. "What?" Tuyun looked confused. "Earth's gravity. It's too strong for them. Look at their bone structure. It's very light, almost hollow like a bird's bones. Their muscles are thin. They evolved on a world with much lower gravity than Earth. Their home planet probably has gravity that's less than half of what we have here." Duyun stared at the fallen alien. "You mean they're being crushed by Earth's gravity? Just by standing here?" "Yes, their armor helps support them, but it's not enough. Every movement they make requires enormous effort. Their hearts can't pump blood properly in this gravity. Their spines are being compressed. They probably feel like they weigh 3 times what they should." The information spread quickly through the military command. Scientists were brought in to confirm Kyungmi's theory. They examined captured aliens and ran tests. The results were clear. The Catherans were a species that evolved in low gravity. On their homeworld, they were graceful and strong. On Earth, they were helpless. Hye Jin watched the news from her office at the Space Institute. She saw footage from landing zones around the world. Aliens falling. Aliens struggling to breathe. Aliens dying simply from being on Earth's surface. It was horrible and strange at the same time. Her phone rang. It was her supervisor. "We need to analyze their ships," he said. "If their soldiers can't survive on Earth, what's their next move?" That was the question everyone was asking. In orbit, Commander Velrath faced a nightmare. His invasion force was destroyed. Not by human weapons, not by a brave defense, simply by the planet itself. The reports from the surface were devastating. 70% casualties in the first 30 minutes. The survivors were in critical condition. Velrath stood on the bridge of his flagship. His officers watched him, waiting for orders. Some looked scared. Others looked angry. All of them wanted an explanation for how this could have happened. "How did our intelligence miss this?" one officer finally asked. Velrath had no answer. The Kethran Empire had conquered dozens of worlds. They always checked for defenses, technology, military strength, but they had never thought to check the gravity. All their previous conquests had been worlds with low gravity like their homeworld. They had assumed all habitable planets were similar. They were wrong. Terribly, fatally wrong. On Earth, military forces began to relax slightly. The immediate threat was over. Taeho and his unit secured the landing zone. They watched as the alien soldiers who were still alive were carefully moved to medical facilities. Human doctors and scientists worked frantically to keep them alive, learning alien biology through desperate trial and error. Duyun managed to save 3 aliens. It wasn't easy. He had to figure out how their bodies worked, what they needed to survive. One alien, smaller than the others, remained conscious. It watched Doyun work with its large, dark eyes. "I'm trying to help you," Doyun said, even though he knew the alien probably couldn't understand him. "Just stay calm." The alien made a sound. Its hand moved slightly as if trying to reach for something. Doyun gently held the alien's hand. It was cold and the fingers were longer than human fingers. The alien's grip was weak like a bird's foot. "You're going to be okay," Doyun said. He hoped it was true. But even as humanity began to process what had happened, a new fear emerged. The aliens still had their ships. They still had weapons that could destroy cities from orbit. And now they had 10,000 reasons to be angry. Kyungmi stood in the command center looking at satellite images of the Kethran fleet. The ships were moving, changing position. Something was happening up there. The aliens were planning something. "What do you think they'll do?" Taeho asked. He had been called to the command center for a briefing. Kyungmi didn't look away from the screen. "I don't know. But Commander Velrath has a choice to make. He can admit defeat and go home in shame, or he can try something else, something that doesn't require soldiers on the ground." "Like what?" Taeho asked, though he feared he already knew the answer. "Orbital bombardment," Kyungmi said quietly. "They can't conquer us, but they could still destroy us." That night, people around the world looked up at the sky. The alien ships were still there, silent and threatening. Humanity had survived the first day, but nobody knew what tomorrow would bring. 2 days had passed since the failed invasion. Around the world, military forces kept watch over hundreds of captured Kethran soldiers. Most were in critical condition. Some had died despite the best efforts of human doctors. The survivors were kept in special facilities where scientists tried to understand their biology. Bora was one of those scientists. She was a xenobiologist, someone who studied alien life forms. Before the Kethrans arrived, her job had been theoretical. She studied the possibility of alien life. Now she was examining actual aliens, and what she learned shocked her. The Kethran she was studying was named Yunji. That wasn't the alien's real name. But human tongues couldn't pronounce the sounds that Kethrans made. Yunji had survived by immediately putting herself into a medical coma when she realized what was happening. Her pod's medical system had kept her alive until human soldiers found her. Now Yunji was awake, floating in a special tank filled with liquid that helped support her body. Even lying down, Earth's gravity was painful for her. Through a translator device that had been recovered from her pod, she could communicate with the humans. "Your world is a nightmare," Yunji said. Her voice came through the translator as flat and emotionless. But Bora could see pain in the alien's large eyes. "Every moment feels like I'm being crushed. How do you live like this?" Bora didn't know how to answer that. "This is normal for us. We've always lived with this gravity. Our bodies are built for it." "You are built like tanks," Yunji said. "Your bones are so thick and heavy. Your muscles are so dense. On my world, you would be considered incredibly strong. Here, you are just normal. I finally understand why our invasion failed." Through conversations with Yunji and other cooperative prisoners, humanity learned the truth about the Kethran Empire. They were conquerors, but not because they were especially cruel. They simply expanded into space and found worlds they could easily dominate. The key was gravity. Every world the Kethrans had conquered was a low-gravity planet. The species that lived there were adapted to those conditions. When the Kethrans arrived with their technology and military training, they were superior warriors. They never lost, until Earth. "We didn't check," Yunji admitted. "We saw your planet was inhabited. We saw you had primitive technology compared to ours. We assumed it would be easy. Nobody thought to measure the gravity carefully. It's such a basic thing. We never imagined a species could evolve under such crushing weight." Jae Sung was a coordinator for the United Nations military forces. He sat in meeting after meeting, listening to reports from around the world. Every report said the same thing. The grounded Kethrans were no threat. They couldn't fight. Many couldn't even survive without constant medical support. But the ships in orbit were still a massive problem. Velrath's fleet had enough firepower to destroy every major city on Earth. They had weapons that could crack continents. And now they had nothing to lose. "What would you do?" Jae Sung asked his advisors. "If you were Velrath, what would you do now?" "He could bombard us from orbit," one advisor said. "Kill everyone and claim the planet once we're gone." "But then he gains nothing," another argued. "A dead planet has no value. The Kethrans conquer worlds to use their resources. What's the point of turning Earth into a wasteland?" "Pride," Jae Sung said quietly. "He might do it out of pride. Or revenge. We killed 10,000 of his soldiers." "We didn't kill them," someone pointed out. "Earth killed them. The planet itself." "Try explaining that to a commander who just lost his entire invasion force," Jae Sung replied. In orbit, Velrath faced exactly that situation. His officers demanded answers. His superiors in the Empire demanded answers. He had none to give. The greatest military embarrassment in Kethran history had happened under his command. Some of his officers wanted revenge. They argued for immediate bombardment. "Make the humans pay for this humiliation," they said, but others disagreed. A young officer named Talvin spoke up. "Commander, we should withdraw. We made a terrible mistake. Killing billions of humans won't fix that. It will only make us murderers." Velrath wanted to argue, but he couldn't. Deep down, he knew Talvin was right. But admitting defeat meant shame. It meant the end of his career, possibly the end of his life. The Empire did not forgive failure. On Earth, strange things began happening. The Kethrans deployed machines. Large mechanical walkers and flying drones emerged from their ships. These machines didn't have the same problem as the organic soldiers. They were built for high-gravity combat, and they were very dangerous. Sang-ho was a fighter pilot. He and his squadron were scrambled when the first wave of alien drones appeared over Seoul. The drones were fast and heavily armed. They attacked military bases with precision, but Sang-ho and his fellow pilots had an advantage. The drones were designed to fight Kethran ships and Kethran tactics. Human pilots flew differently. They could handle maneuvers that would tear apart the lighter Kethran vessels. Sang-Ho pushed his fighter into a tight turn that generated crushing G-forces. His flight suit compressed around his body, keeping blood flowing to his brain. The alien drone tried to follow but couldn't match the turn. Sang-Ho came around behind it and fired. The drone exploded in a ball of flame. "They can't pull the same Gs we can," Sang-Ho reported over the radio. "Use high-speed maneuvers. They can't follow." The battle over Seoul lasted 3 hours. Human forces lost several aircraft, but they destroyed most of the drones. Similar battles happened around the world. The Kethran machines were advanced, but they were designed for a different kind of warfare. Tae-ho watched the aerial battle from the ground. He saw human fighters making impossible turns, surviving speeds and forces that would kill a Kethran pilot. It made him think about something Kyungmi had said earlier. "We're not stronger because we trained harder," she had explained. "We're stronger because we were born on a planet that made us this way. Every day of our lives from the moment we're born, we're doing resistance training just by existing. Earth's gravity makes us powerful without us even realizing it." Do-Yun continued working with the captured Kethrans. He had formed a strange friendship with Eunji. She was a scientist, not a warrior. She had been forced to join the invasion fleet like all Kethrans of working age. "I never wanted to conquer your world," Eunji told him. "But in the Empire, you don't get to choose. The military calls and you serve. I'm a biotechnician. I was supposed to help colonize Earth after it surrendered. Instead, I'm your prisoner." "You're not really a prisoner," Do-Yun said. "You're more like a patient. We're trying to keep you alive." "Thank you for that," Eunji said. "Many of your people would prefer we all died." Do-Yun couldn't deny that. There was a lot of anger toward the Kethrans, but he had taken an oath to help the wounded no matter who they were. "You came to conquer us," he said. "But you're not conquering anything now. You're just scared and far from home. I can't hate you for that." That evening, Eunji gave Do-Yun a warning. "Commander Velrath is desperate. A desperate leader is dangerous. He has 2 choices, run away in shame or destroy Earth from orbit. I don't know which he'll choose, but you should prepare for the worst." Do-Yun passed the warning to his superiors. Around the world, humanity prepared. But how could they fight ships in space? How could they defend against weapons that could strike from orbit? The answer came from an unexpected place. Kyungmi had been studying the captured Kethran technology. She had an idea. A crazy, dangerous idea, but it might be humanity's only chance. Kyungmi stood in front of a room full of military officers and government officials. Her presentation was simple but bold. Behind her, a screen showed diagrams of captured Kethran drop pods. "We can use their own technology against them," she said. "These drop pods are designed to carry soldiers from orbit to a planet's surface. But they can also go the other way, from surface to orbit." Jae-sung leaned forward in his seat. "You want to attack their ships? In space?" "Yes," Kyungmi said. "The Kethrans can't fight on Earth, but we can fight in space. We're not comfortable there, but we can survive. They designed their ships for Kethran crews, low-gravity environments, delicate beings. But humans are built tough. We can board their ships and take control." The room erupted in arguments. Some people thought the idea was brilliant. Others thought it was suicide. How could humans with almost no space combat experience assault advanced alien warships? Young-soo, an engineer who had been studying the Kethran pods, stood up. "It can work," he said. "With Yoonji's help, we've figured out how to operate their systems. The pods can reach orbit. They can dock with the ships. After that, it's just close combat. And in close combat, humans have advantages." "What advantages?" someone asked. "They have energy weapons and advanced armor." "They're fragile," Young-soo replied. "Yoonji told us. A Kethran's bones break easily. Their bodies can't take impacts. A punch from a human could seriously injure a Kethran. Their armor protects against weapons, but it doesn't make them physically stronger. In hand-to-hand combat, one human is worth 3 or 4 Kethrans." The debate continued for hours. Finally, Jae-sung made the decision. "We'll do it. Prepare a strike team. But this has to work perfectly. If we fail, Velrath will bombard us in response. This is our one chance." Woo Jin was an astronaut. He had trained for years, dreaming of going to space. He never imagined his first trip would be as part of a military assault on an alien warship, but he volunteered immediately when he heard about the mission. The strike team was small, 30 people total. Astronauts, special forces soldiers, engineers, All of them knew they might not come back. They trained for a week learning how to operate the Kethrin pods and weapons. Hyunji helped them, teaching them everything she knew about Kethrin ships and tactics. The ships are not designed for combat inside, she explained. Kethrins avoid boarding actions. They fight from distance. If you can get inside, you'll have the advantage. But getting inside is the hard part. Taiho was chosen for the mission. His experience and leadership made him valuable. The night before launch, he couldn't sleep. He walked outside and looked up at the stars. Somewhere up there, the Kethrin fleet waited. Tomorrow he would be fighting in space. Duyan found him there. "Can't sleep either?" the medic asked. "Too much to think about," Taiho admitted. "Yunji told me something today," Doyun said. "She said that in Kethrin culture there's a saying, 'The strongest tree grows on the mountain where the wind blows hardest.' She says that's what humans are. We grew on a hard world, so we became strong." Taiho smiled slightly. "I like that. Though right now I don't feel very strong. I feel scared, we all are," Doyun said. "But we're doing this anyway. Maybe that's what makes us strong." The next morning, the strike team boarded the modified Kethrin pods. Young-Soo had worked night and day to make the pods safe for humans. They would be cramped and uncomfortable, but they would work. Hyejin watched from mission control. Her job was to guide the pods to their target. The Kethrin flagship was the objective. If they could capture or disable it, the rest of the fleet might surrender. "All teams ready?" she asked over the radio. One by one, the team leaders confirmed. Woojin, Taiho, and the others were as ready as they would ever be. "Launch," Jae-sung ordered. The pods shot into the sky like missiles. The acceleration was brutal. Even with special suits and support systems, the G-forces were crushing. Inside his pod, Taiho felt like an elephant was sitting on his chest. He heard someone grunting in pain over the radio. But nobody screamed. Nobody gave up. A Kethrin could not have survived that launch. Their bodies would have been pulped by the acceleration. But humans, dense and compact, endured. It was painful and terrifying, but they endured. On the Kethrin flagship, alarms started blaring. Velrath rushed to the bridge. "What's happening?" he demanded. "Multiple objects launching from Earth's surface," an officer reported. "They're coming directly at us. They look like our own drop pods." Velrath stared at the display. The humans were attacking. Actually attacking his fleet. It was insane. It was impossible. And yet it was happening. "Shoot them down," he ordered. The flagship's weapons opened fire. Energy beams and missiles streaked through space. Some of the human pods were hit and destroyed, but most survived, weaving and dodging with aggressive maneuvers. The pods were small and fast. They were hard targets. Woojin piloted his pod with skill born from years of training. He had studied how Kethrin ships moved, how they fought. He knew they preferred slow, precise maneuvers. So he did the opposite. He flew fast and erratic, making it nearly impossible for the alien targeting systems to track him. One pod reached the flagship and attached itself to the hull. Then another. Then 3 more. The pods cut through the outer hull using tools designed for emergency breaching. Within minutes, humans were inside the Kethrin ship. Taiho was in the first group to breach. His pod cut through the hull and they entered a corridor. Artificial gravity held them to the floor. But the gravity was weak, maybe half of Earth normal. To Taiho, it felt like he could fly. 2 Kethrin guards appeared at the end of the corridor. They raised their weapons. Taiho and his team moved fast, faster than the Kethrins expected. In the low gravity, humans could jump incredible distances, move with surprising speed. The Kethrins fired their energy weapons, but the humans were already moving. One beam hit a wall, another hit a soldier's armor, scorching it but not penetrating. Then the humans were on them. What happened next was brutal. The Kethrins were taller, but they were light and fragile. When a human soldier slammed into one, the impact broke bones. The Kethrin's armor sparked and failed. The alien fell, stunned and badly injured. Taiho felt almost guilty. It wasn't a fair fight. The Kethrins tried to resist, but they simply weren't built for physical combat against humans. Every collision, every impact favored the humans. The aliens' weapons were dangerous, but in close quarters, humans were more dangerous. The strike teams fought their way deeper into the ship. Kethrin resistance was fierce but ineffective. The aliens tried to organize a defense, but they had never trained for this. Their entire military doctrine was based on fighting at range using technology. They had no answer for humans crashing through their ship like wrecking balls. Woojin's team reached the engine room. They placed charges on critical systems exactly as planned. Other teams secured key locations throughout the ship. Within an hour of boarding, the humans controlled most of the flagship. Velrath watched his ship fall to the humans through security cameras. It was a nightmare. His crew, his trained warriors, were being overwhelmed by primitive aliens. He reached for the self-destruct controls. If he couldn't win, he would deny the humans their victory. But before he could activate the system, Talvin stopped him. The young officer put a hand on Velrath's arm. "No, Commander. Enough death. This is over." Other officers moved to support Talvin. A mutiny was happening. Velrath looked around at his crew. They were tired. They were scared. They didn't want to die for pride. Velrath's hand fell away from the controls. He was done. The war was over. 3 months had passed since the Kethrin fleet surrendered. The world had changed in ways nobody could have imagined. The alien ships still orbited Earth, but now they flew the white flag of peace. Negotiations between humans and Kethrins happened every day. Teho stood on the observation deck of the new space station. It had been built quickly, using both human and Kethrin technology. This station would be neutral ground, a place where both species could meet without the gravity problem. Through the large window, he could see Earth turning below. It looked so peaceful from up here, beautiful and blue. It was hard to believe that just a few months ago, this planet had been under threat of destruction. He-Jin floated up beside him. Moving in zero gravity still felt strange to her, but she was getting better at it. "Beautiful, isn't it?" she said, looking at Earth. "Yes," Teho agreed. "And deadly. At least for Kethrins." "That's changing," He-Jin said. She pointed to a section of the station where construction was still ongoing. "Bora's team has developed new exoskeleton suits. They're much better than the first versions. Kethrins wearing them can actually walk on Earth's surface now. It's uncomfortable for them, but possible." The exoskeletons were a breakthrough. Using both human engineering and Kethrin technology, the suits provided enough support for the aliens to function in Earth's gravity. They would never be comfortable, and they couldn't wear the suits for more than a few hours at a time. But it was progress. Duyun worked in the medical section of the station. He had become the leading expert on Kethrin biology. His patients trusted him, especially Yunji. She had become his assistant, helping treat other Kethrins who were still recovering from their injuries. "How many are left?" Duyun asked her as they reviewed patient files. "Of the original invasion force? About 3,000, Yunji said. Her voice still came through a translator, but Duyun had learned to read her expressions. She looked sad. 7,000 died. Most in the first day. Your planet killed more of us than any battle in our history." "I'm sorry," Duyun said. He meant it. Yes, the Kethrins had come to conquer Earth, but most of them were just following orders. They didn't deserve to die in such a horrible way. "Don't be sorry," Yunji replied. "We chose to invade your world. We didn't know what we were facing, but that's our fault for being arrogant. We thought all species were like us. We were wrong." The surviving Kethrins faced a difficult choice. They could return to their empire in shame, which likely meant punishment or death, or they could stay near Earth, becoming refugees. Most chose to stay. They had nothing to go back to. Jae-sung oversaw the integration process. It wasn't easy. Many humans didn't trust the Kethrins. There were protests, angry speeches, demands that all the aliens be sent away. But Jae-sung believed in giving them a chance. They came as enemies, he told the United Nations Assembly, but they left as defeated soldiers. Now they're asking for sanctuary. Can we be better than they were? Can we show mercy where they showed none? The debate went on for weeks. Finally, a decision was made. The Kethrins could stay, but under strict conditions. They would share their technology. They would help build the new space station and other orbital facilities, and they would never again serve the empire that had sent them to conquer Earth. News of Earth's victory spread through the galaxy. The Kethrin Empire tried to hide their shame, but word got out. Other species that had been conquered by the Kethrins heard the story. Tall, graceful warriors brought low by a planet's gravity, defeated by the very ground beneath their feet. Rebellion started on the conquered worlds. The Kethrin Empire had seemed invincible. Now everyone knew they weren't. Within months, the empire began to collapse. Colonies declared independence. The Kethrin military, humiliated and weakened, couldn't stop it. But more importantly, other species learned about humanity. The galaxy discovered Earth, a high-gravity world that produced incredibly strong beings. Most habitable planets had gravity lower than Earth's. That meant most alien species were similar to the Kethrans, adapted to lighter worlds. Humans were unusual. They were the heavy worlders, the dense species, the ones who trained in crushing gravity every moment of their lives. In the galactic community, humans would be considered naturally powerful, not because of magic or genetic engineering, but simply because of where they evolved. Kyung-mi wrote a report about this for Earth's governments. "We need to be careful," she warned. "We're stronger than most species out there. That makes us intimidating. But it also makes us targets. Some aliens might fear us. Others might want to test themselves against us. We need to be wise about how we use our strength." Sang-ho had a new job. He was training the first joint human Kethran military unit. It was a strange assignment, teaching the people who had tried to invade Earth how to work alongside humans. But it was necessary. "Why are we doing this?" a young human soldier asked him during training. Sang-ho thought about his answer. "Because now that the galaxy knows about us, more will come. Some will come as friends, some as enemies. We need allies. And the Kethrans, despite everything, understand galactic politics better than we do. They can teach us. We can protect them. It's a partnership." The training was difficult. Humans and Kethrans had very different fighting styles. Humans preferred close combat, using their strength and durability. Kethrans fought from distance using precision and technology, but together they could be formidable. Wu Jin had become a hero. The astronaut who led the assault on the Kethran flagship was famous worldwide. But he didn't feel like a hero. He remembered the Kethrans they had fought. How fragile they were, how easy it was to hurt them. "I keep thinking about it," he told Taeho one day. They were both on the space station, training new crews. "We're so much tougher than them." "It wasn't a fair fight." "War is never fair," Taeho replied. "But we didn't start it. And we ended it without destroying them. That counts for something." Youngsu worked with Kethran engineers to combine technologies. The results were impressive. Human durability and Kethran advanced science created new possibilities. Spacecraft that could travel faster and safer. Weapons that were more precise. Medical treatments that worked for multiple species. "Imagine what we could have done if we'd met as friends instead of enemies," a Kethran engineer said to him. Youngsu nodded. "We're doing it now. That's what matters." Bora made another breakthrough. She discovered that the differences between humans and Kethrans weren't as extreme as they seemed. Both species had evolved to survive on their respective worlds. Kethrans were adapted to low gravity. Humans to high gravity. Neither was superior. They were just different. "If we had tried to invade their world, we would have problems too," she explained in a lecture. "In low gravity, our dense bones and muscles would be a disadvantage. We'd be slow and clumsy. They'd have the advantage there. The lesson isn't that humans are better. The lesson is that every species is adapted to its home. Leave that home and you're vulnerable." One evening, Yoonji tried walking on Earth for the first time. She wore the new exoskeleton suit. Do-yoon and several doctors stood nearby, ready to help if something went wrong. Slowly, carefully, Yoonji took her first steps in Earth's terrible gravity. "How does it feel?" Do-yoon asked. "Like I'm carrying a mountain," Yoonji said. Even with the suit's help, every step was difficult. "How do you live like this every day?" "We don't know any different," Do-yoon replied. "This is just home to us." Yoonji managed to walk 50 meters before she had to stop. She was exhausted, but she was also proud. "I did it," she said, breathing hard. "I walked on Earth, the planet that defeated my people." "And now it's becoming your home too," Do-yoon said. "If you want it to be." Yoonji looked around at the human city surrounding them. People walked past, going about their daily lives. Some stared at her, curious about the tall alien in the mechanical suit. Others just nodded politely and kept moving. "Yes," Yoonji decided. "I think I do want that. Earth is harsh, but it's also beautiful. And the people here saved my life. This can be home." That night, representatives from other alien species began arriving at the space station. They came from across the galaxy, curious about Earth and its people. Some came seeking trade. Others wanted alliances. All of them wanted to see the humans who had defeated the Kethran Empire. Jae-sung greeted them with Taeho and Hyejin at his side. The aliens were diverse. Some were smaller than humans. Others were taller. Some looked almost human. Others were completely different. But they all had one thing in common. They all came from low-gravity worlds. In the galactic community, Earth was rare. a heavy world that had produced intelligent life. Most species evolved on lighter worlds. That made humans unique. It made them strong, and it meant they would have a special role in the galaxy. As Tejo watched the alien ambassadors arrive, he thought about how far humanity had come. Months ago, they were facing extinction. Now they were joining the galactic community as equals. No, as more than equals. As the strong ones. The heavy worlders. The species that carried the weight of their planet with them everywhere they went. Earth's gravity had almost been humanity's prison. Instead, it became their greatest strength. The very thing that made their planet deadly to others made them powerful. Every step they took, every movement they made was training.